All right, we are recording. This is Richard Nikoley of freetheanimal.com. I'm here with Noah Revoy, way out in Lisbon, well, near Lisbon, Portugal, who, in addition to his Twitter and Facebook activities and Instagram, I don't know, but principally runs the website smv4, the number 4k.com. He can explain what that means to you. We've had him on here. Noah and I have a couple interviews going back a year, I suppose, both on his site and my site. And then in addition, he was discussions number 1. This is number 6. We're having him back on. We've got a couple things scheduled out, but Andy Curzon, who is my partner in crime at this, wasn't able to get on the call right away. He'll be joining us a little bit later, and so whenever he pops in, he pops in. In the meantime, Noah, say hi.
Hello. Yes, SMV4K. So it's sexual market value for K-selected people. And when I started the website, I was helping a lot of people who were K-selected. So that means people who are a colloquial term you might say is more conservative. They were more conservative in their approach to finding a partner and marriage and settling down. And I was helping these people to improve their ability to attract a mate and also to make good decisions when they were dating. And a number of my clients have got married as well. So helping them with vetting their potential partner and making sure they presented themselves in the best possible light.
What's the difference between K-selected and the other term, alpha males, or even if you say alpha females,
Well, I usually put it into a matrix. So amongst K-selected, you have alphas and betas. And the alphas are the K-selected men who are fully developed. This is what you might see as the group leader of a community of normally of families. And he's the one that is, or one of the ones that are truly the complete and fully developed man. And the K-selected beta is the younger man who's not yet completely developed to the point where he can participate in the management of the community. So, might be a young guy, he's got good traits, but he needs to continue to work on developing his masculine virtues.
So a beta isn't a beta for life necessarily, especially in a group or a pack. It could be an alpha in waiting, just waiting to essentially either shuttle into the role or challenge the role at a point.
Exactly. And when I made that, I was really trying to help all the men that I could find to develop their alpha characteristics. And one of my clients pointed out to me very well that not all men are suited for leadership positions, and that there needs to be men who support, I think he called it the fast followers or first followers that need to support the alphas in their role, because leadership is very stressful. They actually done studies where they take a look at the blood cortisol levels of people in leadership responsibilities in a community, and then people in all the various stages of the community. And the highest level of stress was in the leaders and the people at the very bottom of the social hierarchy. So they had about the same level of stress. In other words, it's as hard on you to lead a community as it is to be almost rejected by a community. You have a lot of responsibilities, and you need the support of men who are very well developed men, but may not want to take on that leadership role. So some people will call those men beta. I like to think of them, like you said, alphas in training, but I like to think of them as the men who support the alphas. And it's not necessarily that they are beta. I mean, you have a Navy SEAL team and you got 6 guys on the team. Which one of them's the beta?
Right.
Yeah.
That's where it kind of gets muddy and confusing for me, because it could be like just alpha sub or something like that. They're able to, they have the characteristics, but they're they're also, you know, being K-selected and conservative, and someone who cares about future planning, resources, and all of this stuff might say, well, you know, this other guy is better at that stuff than I am. And so in that sort of vision, you know, that's an example why in the military in general you have hierarchies, right? You got one captain of the ship, but you know the department heads and the division officers, you know, generally aren't pushover guys, and they move up in the ranks. But in the context of the thing, you know, not everybody can be captain. You have to, part of it is recognizing hierarchy and recognizing how valuable it is to the organization as a whole. It brings me to another you know, you talked about the stress, right? Makes a lot of sense. And obviously someone at the very bottom in anything is probably going to have you're the doormat, you're the nobody, and the whatever. On the other hand, you know, maybe an alternative phrase for the alpha of the alphas is the atlas, you know, right? And that's why the high stress, because you've got the world on your shoulders in a sense.
Yeah, and you feel this deep sense of responsibility. You know, a lot of times when people are describing alphas, they'll say, they'll describe aggression and almost a selfishness. And that might be true in the R-selected alphas. So the alphas have a very short-term view of the world, and it's grab as much as I can right now, because who knows what'll happen tomorrow. With the K-selected, we realize that we get the best outcome when we ensure that our entire group is winning. Mm-hmm. In fact, if we can cooperate with another group instead of fight them, that's even better. And so generally they're the peacekeepers. They're the ones that are trying to make sure everyone has what they need so that they don't feel the need to rebel against the hierarchy itself. And this is why you'll see, for example, if you are masculine, if you're online, if you post anything that doesn't meet the feminist criteria for acceptable speech, they will attack you. They will undermine the alpha, because that's their way of undermining the patriarchal hierarchy of men. And it's kind of a sign that you're alpha if you can post and get thousands of negative responses from feminists. You know, it's proof of what you're doing.
Now you asked me what's the topic going to be, and I knew that, well, they'll just come up. And so two things. First, you're talking about the feminist undermining, which is what Kurt Doolittle put together as, what is it? GSSRM. Run through that.
Well, basically what it is, and the best way to do it is to actually Google it, or to look it up to see the very details of it. But it is a series of generally feminine cognitive biases. So ways that they prefer to process information and that they prefer to interact. So men have a physical advantage. You know, women can't win in a fight with us that's physical. We're physical super predators. We're the most physically dangerous animal on the planet. Women are... And
the mind is our chief weapon.
Yes, that's their weapon. They're social super predators. They understand how to get control of other women and men to do their bidding, to amplify their power beyond what they physically could do. And so they will use a certain series of techniques. And the big ones are rallying. So that means getting all their friends. You'll see that if you've posted something controversial, you'll notice people posting links to these groups. And the groups are basically rally points where radical people get together and help each other intimidate people who don't follow their thinking. And so there's the rallying, there's shaming. You know, I will get called a boomer. I've been called a boomer and a millennial within 2 minutes of each other.
And an incel too. Yeah, an incel too, which is particularly hilarious.
Yeah, I'm an incel with three sons, and and a wife, you know.
Oh,
I mean, I hope
have
they're
the twin
married incels, but
have the twins been born now?
more 2 weeks.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, but you can see them moving around in there.
close enough. Yeah.
Yeah, close enough. You really can see them. My wife's fairly lean, and she didn't really gain any weight much during the pregnancy, so you can see the outlines of the kids. But yeah, it is a series of pre-programmed insults. These are not all of them, but most of them will follow a small group of leaders. Maybe 2 or 3% of them are leaders, and the rest are followers. And these leaders, you'll notice they're the ones that post links for your comment all over the place, are usually the leaders, the agitators. And the others, though, they're programmed like an NPC in a video game. They're programmed to give a certain response. Incel, you're a bigot, racist, homophobic, maybe they'll call you a Nazi or whatever. You know, I don't talk about race publicly, and people will say, oh, you're a racist. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, you need to stick within the insults that fit the, like, you know, call me a bigot, okay, call me a patriarch, call me a misogynist. Maybe to some people you can fit that in with the comments that I've made, but where are you getting racist from? You know, where are you getting some of the other things that I get accused of? So it's very interesting. It's just a series of pre-programmed insults.
Well, you know, as you know, I'm one of my ignominious claims to fame is my propensity to get banned on Facebook, which is 17 times. Now you've had a few now yourself, because I think it was your business page for the SMV4K website. And it was some months back, you posted something, and it happened to just set off a feminist onslaught, the likes of which I've never seen. I mean, you said, I don't even know what you said, but they got like how many thousands of
I had banned close to 8,000 people specifically, just to reduce the tide. Recently, Facebook kept turning off my reviews because they basically told me that I wasn't paying them enough. You have to read between the lines, but I wasn't paying them enough in advertisement revenue for it to be worthwhile for them to go through all my reviews, because I would complain about all of the abusive reviews, and they have to have a real person look at that. There are things that are automated in Facebook. But complaints about reviews are generally not automated because it involves paying customers. So I'm a paying customer. They don't automate it. But they kept turning it off. They would turn it randomly back on and then almost immediately turn it off, because I would get 20 or 30 negative reviews.
Wow. You know, the funny thing is that when you see that level of a campaign, I suppose, right? It can have it can have an opposite effect. I mean, because someone goes in there and they're like, wow, there must be something to this guy for him to command that much animosity.
Shortly out between the time period, see, I never cultivated very much the online presence because I know I don't like to cultivate a market in a space that someone else completely controls.
Right.
So my focus is on the newsletter. My focus is on the website, that kind of stuff. So I put most of my effort there. But within about a month of starting of this post getting picked up. So at first nobody saw it, and then it got posted in the wrong places, and it started to get picked up. And within a month, I tripled my Facebook followers.
Wow.
So, and there was no effort on my part. It just happened. I didn't pay for that. I had some weeks where I had over 100,000 views on that one post.
Wow.
Now, 100,000 views, I only had to ban around 8,000 people.
Yeah.
Which means that the vast majority of the people who saw it didn't have any negative problems with it. They didn't come to complain about it.
Wow.
And so it really is a small minority that are very loud, very vocal. You know, if you think about it, you should go, you know, a person should go through and look. I did a lot of screen captures of the people's abusive comments and some screenshots of what their Facebook pages looked like, thinking maybe I'll make an article of it later. And there is a theme. These are what one of my friends calls the genetic rejects. They're the people who they have serious issues, and because of that, they have not achieved family. They have not achieved, you know, they don't have a job worth talking about. They don't have anything much in their lives. And because their lives are empty, they have a lot of time to bitch and moan on the internet.
Yeah.
And so that's why they appear to be so many. And I think it's very discouraging, for example, for young men, when they see this and they think all women are like this, because, you know, maybe 60-70% of the women commenting were making negative comments.
So
that's not all women. That's a very small slice of radical, unhealthy women.
isn't it that your base approach or position is simply that you advocate for, you know, what could loosely be described as traditional roles amongst males and females leading to a traditional marriage and family sort of thing, the thing everybody knows about. Everybody's grandparents were that way, and probably most people's parents were largely that way. So what's the beef?
Well, and my thing too is, like, I'm not telling people they have to do this or that. What I'm saying is, if you want to raise children, the healthy way to raise them is with clear roles in the family. That's going to be the best way to raise kids. If not, I'm pretty clear, like, do what you want to do if you want to do it on your own. But the reason I started into this is I had so many people, you know, when my wife got pregnant, I looked around and I saw there's a lot of good people that are not finding a mate. They're not having kids. They're stalled in their relationships and their romantic life. And I started to help these people more and more. I'd already been doing this for a while. And when my wife got pregnant, I thought, you know, I want my son growing up with a peer group of other healthy raised people. You know, as much as possible, I want him to grow up with a peer group that wasn't raised by single parents, that wasn't raised in with parents who are unhappily married, who are in chaotic situations, or just not have a peer group because so many people in my generation and younger aren't having children. And so I thought, what am I going to do about that? I got to help people. I know what makes relationships work, so I'm going to help people.
What's the landscape where you live? I think you told me you live like 45 minutes north of Lisbon or something.
I can see the beach out of the corner of my window.
Uh-huh.
Well, not the beach, I can see the ocean. The beach is just covered by the hump of sand in front of the beach. But I can see the ocean. So I'm very close to the ocean. And I'm living in a city that caters specifically to families. So
what population?
I'm not sure the population of this city. I think it's about 250 to 300,000.
Oh, okay, that's pretty substantial then. Not quite village level.
Yeah.
So
they call themselves a village because for marketing purposes,
uh-huh.
Because it makes them seem small. But they've encompassed a whole bunch of tiny villages around under one administrative center. It's more efficient, and you actually can cooperate better on different things like schooling, for example.
Now, how about the social landscape and in particular the familial sort of thing? You know, we all know that in general the Mediterranean regions, you know, I know I'm taking liberties at that because you're more on the Atlantic, but if you take, you know, Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, you know, around that, they're pretty well known for having deep and wide families. Is that the case?
Yeah. People are very family centric here. Even if, you know, you go to the park and all the old people are like, oh, your kid is so cute, and they, you know, want to interact with the kids, and you go to the park and you'll see grandparents with kids and the parents, and not just the depth of generations, but you'll see people that are, they move the whole family over to this area because it really is well catering for children. A lot of public parks that are well designed with places for the kids to play and really good schools. So they'll move down to this area. Also, there's a lot of new housing construction, so that provided spaces. But yeah, it is a culture with a high focus on family. It's also a culture or a country that is very poor. And so that is the limiting factor here. The limiting factor to how many kids, everyone I know would like to have another kid.
Uh-huh.
They just can't afford it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Quite different.
And a lot of
from here, where you have some of the most privileged people in the world, Northern Europeans, North Americans, Canadians, just falling all over themselves about not having children. I don't know if you saw it this morning, AOC, Alexandria, blah, 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 Cortez, whatever, was holding a rally, and she got trolled by someone who said, there's only a few months left. We have to start eating the babies.
And okay, so that was a troll.
I know.
But at this point, the Dems who were surrounding her were so used to this that they weren't sure if it was a troll or not, because this might have been the party's next step. This might have been where we go legitimately. So they didn't want to. If you notice, nobody counteracted her. No one said.
That's the great point that Candace Owens made that I saw on Twitter this morning. She says the issue is not a troll or anything. That the issue is that AOC and everybody else just stood around as though it's a legitimate viewpoint, rather than saying,
"This is a safe space for your idea."
You're insane. You're insane. Get her out of the room right now.
Yeah. There's a reason that Trump is harsh with people, and people respect that harshness.
Yes.
And I guarantee you, if AOC had said, "That is crazy. We're not going to eat kids," even if she hadn't said that, if she says, "That's horrible. That's morally repugnant.
You're being disruptive."
We can't do that. We can't even consider that.
Right.
What would happen right now, what's happening right now, apparently, is that large donors are not donating to the Democrat Party because they're afraid that they've been co-opted by people who would actually be okay with baby eating.
Yeah. The numbers are crazy, especially since this impeachment fever began. Well, reinvigorated. I mean, the impeachment fever has been going since November 4th, 2015.
It's an indication they're desperate. At the moment, they don't have a single viable candidate for anything. The closest they had to a viable candidate was Biden, if they could prop him up and somehow electronically stimulate his brain.
What's that movie? Weekend at Ed's house or something like that.
Yeah, Weekend at Bernie's.
What's that?
That almost was actual Bernie, apparently.
Yeah. So,
it's what's amazing is that it's a party that's gone so off the rails that any proposition is considered plausible.
Right.
And if she had made some sort of a moral stand, I guarantee you that would have made her career.
Mm-hmm.
People would have been like, "Oh, wait, she has limits and boundaries. We look to government to make limits and boundaries. That's its job, is to say, no, that's too far. You can't do that. We'll punish you." That's the job of government. Protect. And nobody's willing to do that in an entire party that makes up roughly half the government.
Hey, let's shift here just a bit while we wait for Andy. And there's some things I'm holding back because I want to wait till he gets online. For instance, talking about Poland, which I want to do. But in the meantime, did you watch the number 5 that we did with George Bruno?
Oh no, I didn't. You did one with George Bruno. Ah, that's good. That's good.
Andy and I, yeah, okay. Andy and I and George is the last one we did. It's on the website.
Good.
When I was up visiting my parents for a week. Actually, I hadn't seen them in months because they'd been on the road, and showed it to them, and they quite liked it, which was pretty amazing. Yeah, you want to catch that, especially since we did talk about your his interview of you. We talked a lot about that. But okay, so if you didn't watch that, then let me ask you, uh, um, what what's the state of the manosphere right now, the red pill and all that, in your view?
Well, I was originally trained since a young age to be a minister. That was my training, my religious training to be a minister. And one of the things that we learn about that, it was how to build an organization or a movement. And part of building a movement is there's a growth period and a winnowing. You grow, and you take in almost anyone who's tangentially connected to you. When you get big enough, there will be something happen. So usually there's some sort of top level power struggle. Sometimes it's an external force or whatever, and it will winnow out some of the people. And the people that leave are the people that are not dedicated, or there'll be maybe a complete split, and there'll be two organizations afterwards. It's very, very common in the growth of any movement or organization. And then the two organizations will compete with each other, and they'll either find their own niches, or one will consume the other, and people will flow back into the winner again. And I think that's what's happening in the manosphere right now. There has been stages to the manosphere, and there was a stage of despair, a stage of fear and anxiety. And I think we're still in that stage, and we're exiting it towards a stage of hope and moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Fear and anxiety is extremely profitable. And some fear and anxiety, I tweeted about this earlier. Some fear and anxiety is good. If there's legitimate reasons to be afraid, if you're facing a lion and you have no fear, you're going to get eaten because you're not going to take the threat seriously. Mm-hmm. If you are making serious mistakes in your life and you have anxiety about your future, that anxiety is there to tell you you need to change. You need to do something different so that you're more calm with the choices you've made. And that means that fear and anxiety have a place. The problem is when it's cultivated as a primary method of doing business. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of that in the manosphere. The manosphere but previous to that was more of a get whatever. It was more of a hedonistic market, and then it shifted over to this fear market, and now I think it's shifting over to really a market based on agency, mm-hmm. where the message has changed. If you look at Poland, I came to Poland, I watched the previous videos, great videos. I came to Poland, and that was a different message, not 100% different, but largely different to everything that had come before it, what I saw other people doing. I was surprised how much my talk about agency tied in with almost everybody else's talk there.
Yeah, I've spoken to this a couple of times, in that when I've spoken 4 times. I've repeated this over and over, but as early as 2011, 12, 16 or 17, and then just this summer. And I spoke on peripheral issues, not diet, philosophy, cryptocurrency, just to rehash all that. But I was excited this time, and my topic was on feminism. Yours was on agency. I have not gotten to see yours yet, except for just like maybe the last third of it, because I went up and you went up, and of course the way they do it is right after you finish speaking, you go back to the other room for your interview with George Bruno. And so I'm waiting for it to actually come online. whenever it does. But your interview is up, and that's fantastic. I'll make sure and shoot a link to that in the notes here. But so a few months before the Poland gig, he held a kind of a supplement. Usually he does one conference per year, typically in Orlando, except for the ones he's done, the handful he's done out and about out of 17 events. But it was a special event called the Patriarchy event. And that was like, because I've been there, I didn't sit and dwell on all the presentations before, because, a lot of it's this pickup and game and stuff that just really, it was more geared for very young men trying to get pussy, basically, and blaming all their problems on, what is basically female hypergamy survival strategy, right?
Yeah.
So I saw a great maturing in it with the patriarch movement, which was highly reflected in Poland, because I was probably the one who gave the harshest presentation about women, because it was about feminism from a historical, the history and cancer of feminism was the title of it. But most of the others, like yourself, agency, and all these other, AJ Cortez, on and on and on. These things were more about self-improvement as a man, as a head of as a husband, as a head of household, as a father, and so on. And I was just, but then the problems were already in play from the patriarchy event, because that's when stuff started blowing up. And a lot of, I don't want to get into all the names and everything like that. I don't think it's necessary. Anthony does calls out the people plenty of enough.
I can't criticize people personally that I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I do know, I do know one of them. And I told a mutual friend of ours back when she, started bringing him up. I'm like, I don't like the guy. Yeah, maybe his books are good. I don't like the guy. I've seen him in person, and he's I just had that spidey sense way back when. I never said much about it. I never said anything publicly about it. But then when it came to fruition, and I saw that basically he was kind of, encouraging his fans to try to get out of their commitment to the Poland thing, to the tune of quite a bit of money, which Anthony has been winning in the chargebacks, if you know about credit card.
And he'll continue to win it. He had a very clear contract that things are a certain way, and it's just a matter of processing through that. It's unfortunate. It's very time consuming then, which means he has less time to help men with 21 convention when he's handling business logistics that didn't need to be there. So.
Yeah. So, but what happened with the attempted coup or hostile takeover amongst a couple of those people, which Anthony rightly defended his name, his brand, his business, the work he's put into it quite effectively, and basically became full control of everything. But the whining that I saw from all the fans of these people, I'm like, I don't call them I call them male organisms of the human species, because it's like,
they're still sending me private messages on Facebook. Every week I get at least 2 or 3 private messages on Facebook from people just about that, and I was getting tons of messages. And honestly, it got to a point where I couldn't tell the difference between the messages the feminists were sending to complain about me speaking at 21 convention, and the messages that the the gamma males from the Manosphere were saying about me being a speaker at 21 convention. The words were the same. That it just all mushed together at a certain point, and that's when you start to understand that the mindset of the men who are in despair, who feel helpless, it's a very effeminate mindset. It's not a masculine mindset.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's. Here's my impression. I'm like, these are guys who regularly, you can see them posting, ridiculing women for how women are. Really what some of them need. They're doing their silly things. What they need is a good relationship with a solid dude. Most of them are probably be okay, right?
Yep.
But these guys,
If they had a decent dad, they would have been fine.
yeah. But these guys have no problem, making fun of, laughing, even if it's a direct interaction, bullying, being a bully, whatever. I hate that term, but for lack of a better one. And they have no problem, ha 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 ha, But when Anthony goes to two men, presumably men, and said, look, you've done, and lays it out in these huge documents with all kinds of evidence, tons, right? And da 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 da. And they're like, oh, why are you doing this? Move on, leave it alone, da 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 da. In other words, so it's exactly the opposite of what a man should be. The man should be like, dude, if you have a guy trying to take over your business and harm it, you cut his head off. You cut his head off, and you hold it up. You hold it in the town square so everyone can see it, so nobody fucks with you anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
What would happen? What would happen if you're in a military? It's your Navy, and someone's gunning for your job, and they're trying to sabotage you to get your job.
Yeah. Right.
You're not going to go, well, yeah, that's just what happens.
Yeah, that's not what happens. Yeah.
No, you fight back, even though you're in the same group, you're all in the same military, you're going to fight each other because one person's trying to do a coup. It's basically the situation. And that's completely Anthony's prerogative to defend himself any way that he feels necessary.
Now, and the thing is,
how we'll know who's right? How will we know who's right in the end? See,
yeah.
I know Anthony. I don't know any of the other people. Like, I know Anthony and all his side of things, and yeah. I know you know a little bit some of the other people too.
Right.
I don't really know the other people. How am I going to know who's right in the end?
Right. Yeah, I've seen the evidence.
I'm only going to know by time. See what happens in the next couple of years.
Yeah,
and we're going to see if Anthony throws another couple of successful events and the others just kind of mush off into their own thing. We know Anthony made the right business decision.
That's
how the markets work. You see who wins.
Right. And the other thing is trying to criticize Anthony and shut him down for doing the right thing with regard to and not letting it drop. I mean, really pounding it. Destroy your enemy, right? Destroy your enemy. Otherwise, it's not going to stop. And if you destroy your enemy, someone else is going to think twice about trying to take you on in the way that they did. But by the same token, none of them are out there saying, "Look, you have kind of a chip on your shoulder with regard to women." And we talked about this before. How do you talk about all these bitches and whores and whatever, but your primary focus is out there trying to fuck them, right? It's kind of a mixed message.
There's too many men complaining about the cock carousel. Well, yeah. They are the cock carousel.
They are. That's what it was. Yeah, I'm not sure that
riding their 20s away, and they want to be the guy getting ridden.
Yes.
It's hypocritical.
Yes.
You have to decide what what you want, what future you want in the world, and then make all your actions line up with that, or you don't get anything accomplished. But what it is there's a lot of, they will complain, and if you notice, the complaint isn't generally that women are too easy, because look at how many of them I'm sleeping with. It's women are too easy. Look how many of those other people are sleeping with. What about you? Well, not so much. You see, and it's the same thing I say about Latin European and Southern European governments. Everyone here is pro-corruption, as long as they're getting a piece of it.
Yeah, right.
You know, everyone's pro-corruption when they're getting a piece of it, and when they're anti-corruption,
they're not getting
them, hey, well, what if we arrange for you to have some of it too? Suddenly they switch over to pro-corruption.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is not a system of decision making based on facts and reason and law and rule of law and ethics. It's
exactly
whatever I want. That's a very effeminate system. That's a very effeminate way of thinking. Women have situational ethics. Whatever gets them what they want, they will depend.
Is what's morally right.
Yeah, it's what's morally right. Now, you know, I say that, I'm not complaining about it. It's just the way that it is. And when women behave this way, we understand that. Not all women behave that way, but a good 80% of them do. And when that happens, we're used to it. We're men. We know how to deal with it. The problem is when other men behave that way. Mm-hmm. That's when we have a real problem.
True, yeah.
There's the men who should be setting the boundaries are the ones who are using situational ethics. And this is across Western society at the moment. The Manosphere is just a reflection of that.
Kurt Doolittle makes good points about this, I think. You know, kind of the gist of it that I get is that, you know, folks like us understand the fundamental ethics, the fundamental rights and wrongs, the fundamental morals, right? But we understand as well that, you know, those arguments principally made by libertarians, you know, is a female-like approach. What you need is rule of law with various incentives set up such that it's in a person's best interest to be law-abiding, right? And
yeah,
so,
rule of law with the correct incentives and an executive, because there are some decisions that need to be made at an executive level. There's not a right or a wrong. It's what's the best out of several choices. That needs to be made by the people who have skin in the game.
King Solomon, you know, split the baby, you know, that's sort of thing, right?
And what that immediately tells him is which one's the mother, because she has the real skin in the game.
Exactly.
He knows that immediately. There are a lot of decisions like that, you know. If the government collapses, take a look at the people that are deathly afraid of government collapsing. They're afraid that the host on which they feed will disappear. And there's other people going, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You immediately know who the parasites are. The ones that go, I'm okay with that, they're not the parasites. You know, get that guy off my neck. I think I can walk on my own, you know.
Who was it that said that the government is the great fiction whereby everyone tries to live at everyone else's expense, you know?
Yeah.
And to an extent we all do.
But this is why, and it's a callback to earlier in the show. This is why when someone says eat the babies, everyone's like, yeah, maybe that makes sense, is because economically that's what we've been doing for the last almost 100 years, is eating the future. We've been eating up resources that we then expect our children to pay. We've been eating the babies. Now someone's just saying eat the actual babies, and that's the next logical step if you continue on this process. That's why we're getting to the point of the process ending. At some point, the adults have to come into the room and go, okay, you kids, you got to stop playing with the economy now. We're revoking your right to have a decision-making power on this. And we're really close to that. It's going to collapse, and that happens de facto, or it will happen in a controlled manner. I would love to see it happen in a controlled manner. Not sure that's how it's going to work out, though.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about Poland. The thing here, we talked about like the issues, but how about the structure of the thing? And to start it off, though, and Andy may not show up before we just say, okay, we've talked enough, and that's okay. You know, we'll do it again someday anyway. And maybe you could hang on. Let me do this first. I'm going to share something. Hopefully this works. I'm going to share part of my screen here. There we go.
Yeah, if you screen share. Oh yeah, perfect.
There. Who's that?
That's me. Yep, on some really wonderful steaks.
Yes, that was at the steakhouse you and I went to. I had the sauce reduction. I think you had the béarnaise or something like
Yeah, I
that.
love béarnaise sauce.
Yeah. And then this is how they bring the tab. Pretty cool for a steakhouse, right?
Yeah. You could do that in North America with libel law or with all of the safety regulations. So
And of course,
that's awesome.
it says service not included. So I gave it back to them like this. So that was great. One more picture to share here. And that's Noah, right in front, and in the background is the Marriott where we were all housed and had the conference. So, all right.
Yeah, it's not what people think of when they think of Eastern Europe. It was clean. It was very professional. Everybody was professional that we dealt with there. It reminded me of what I would picture Germany being if there had been no World War II.
Mm-hmm.
People very, very professional, very lot of tall blonde people, a lot of people very with a professional friendliness to them. Mm-hmm. And it was very, very refreshing to be there. It was cleaner and more organized than many places I've seen in Western Europe.
What I thought was very interesting is that people don't jaywalk. I mean, we were right out there, and there was a fairly substantial intersection there, with the crosswalks and the lights and so on and so forth. And even if there aren't cars coming, you don't see people darting across the street. They wait for the light. I thought that's I don't have a judgment about it one way or another, and I don't think it shows them as compliant.
I think what it is people who've been through a lot of chaos, they seek some order.
Uh-huh.
They went through terrible chaos, not just during the Second World War, but afterwards. If your entire city is leveled and all your buildings are destroyed and the war is over, it's not like all of a sudden things are better. Then they had to go through the Soviet time. They had to rebuild under a Soviet system.
Mm-hmm.
Tough stuff, tough going for them. And so they're probably craving a certain level of structure and organization, and we're kind of facing that in the West now. We've had it good for a while, and we are allowing chaos to come in. We're almost creating chaos on purpose, or the seeds of chaos on purpose, because I almost get the impression that we've been bored. We've been bored. There's been nobody to fight for a while. We're too big. We can't lose any of the wars. And we're not going to fight each other because of nuclear weapons. What can we do to create some chaotic fun? Mm-hmm. That low-key spirit that exists in the Western European mindset. The traditional European gods always had a trickster. And the gods were a reflection of people's inner psyches. We have within us the chaotic trickster desire, just like we have the desire for order, and we need some sort of a balance between the two things. And if you get too much peace and order, there will always be this tendency to go to something chaotic. There's healthy ways to fill it and unhealthy ways. I think we're filling it in an unhealthy way, but then we'll go back. The pendulum will swing back the other way too.
Have you been to other areas in Europe, much beyond Portugal?
Mostly just traveling through. I've been quite a few times to Denmark for work, but I haven't done a lot of traveling, mostly here in Portugal.
Okay, all right. Now, you and Andy have been planning on some sort of a conference in Portugal. I think next spring or something. Is that?
We have to see. We have all the details on hold right now because originally we thought about doing it in October, but that's when I'm going to have kids. So
Yeah,
another couple of weeks, and it wasn't good timing.
October is a thought.
Yeah, we're going to revisit it very early January and decide what we're going to do. But we want to keep that fairly quiet until we get close to the time.
Good.
Don't want to get everybody's hopes up until we know what we can do.
Plus here in a couple of weeks you're gonna have hands full for
twins.
You have to juggle your consulting. How's that going?
Yeah, it's going well. There is a higher turnover in clients when you actually help people solve their problems. I've had a number of psychologists tell me that you got to keep people on as long as you can. Don't solve their problems too fast. Yeah. And that makes me sick. That mentality.
I know that feeling or that approach. I call it the putting yourself out of business approach. I had a company that we did helped companies and small businesses, small companies, and individuals with debt, typically 30,000 or more, 25 to 30,000 or more, because it doesn't 20,000 or more, I should say. And it's a process, and you earn fees while you're negotiating with the creditors to do this. But the end result is that you don't have a client anymore because you've done your job. I suppose the same can be said for doctors and lawyers too. But that partly part of the whole medical industry problem is that it seems to want to have perpetually sick people.
Sick people are profitable. If you can undermine if you're some sort of a therapist and you can find ways to undermine your clients to, or if you're a coach, even I'm actually a coach, not a health therapist. If you can find ways to undermine your clients, to keep them weak, to keep them reliant on your agency to get through week to week, then you've got, you look at them as, oh, this guy is my new BMW and this guy is my new yacht, and these two guys together are going to buy me a house. And that's how they look at it. Mm-hmm. And for me, I started in this to help people. And my goal is to teach people agency. When I started out, I thought that I was going to help people with very advanced and difficult problems that were, required a lot of thinking. What it ended up being is that it all reduces down to agency. And when people take more control over their own life, everything gets better, and then they just don't need me anymore. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel very successful when I have clients who come to me, they want to get married. A year later, they're married. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, maybe at a certain point they come back and get help, but if I help them choose the right person in the first place, they shouldn't need constant help.
What are then, like, say, your top 3 to 5 things that a person who's not in control of their life, or not in good control, effective control, what are the 3 to 5 things you find that the majority of people need to do?
One of the early questions I ask people is, how would you describe yourself? How do you feel about yourself? And I want you to describe it in feelings and emotions. And you'd be surprised how many people say that they're deeply disappointed with themselves and that they hate themselves. And I've heard people say they're disgusted by themselves. Mm-hmm. And I ask them, if you had a friend and you described the friend that way, how motivated would you be to help that friend have a better life? And I'd say, if there was a person like that, I wouldn't want to be around them anymore. And that's exactly why people kill themselves. They stop loving themselves, or never loved themselves in the first place, to the point where they're disgusted by themselves, and the only way that they can get away from themselves is to kill themselves. And they're not that far, but they're slowly killing themselves by, overeating, over drinking, no exercise, no social life. They're stressing themselves out. They're just killing themselves slowly. And helping them to understand their own value and to build a healthy ego where, your ego should be based on a solid foundation of understanding your own virtues.
Mm-hmm.
You understand your own virtues. You understand why you have inherent value, the choices and decisions you've made have inherent value. And if you don't have a lot of virtues, then we work on that and we'll help you develop virtues.
Could you
Once
also
people start loving themselves, the rest starts falling into place. A lot of the rest is about communication.
Could you, in the term of virtues, could you also I guess characterize that as talents, abilities, art, art in the sense of, there's just some people who it's like the old saying, but they make it look easy, right?
Yeah. Well, I think for virtues, to some extent, these are they're qualities that a person displays, and that can really overlap with skills as well. So you could be an empathetic person, and you can be better at being empathetic by adding skills to that, listening, communication skills, and whatnot. Many of the people that come to me and say they feel bad, it's over things that they have done, mistakes they've made with previous relationships and even with their family. And oftentimes it's their empathy, knowing that they hurt someone, that's making them feel like shit,
Mm-hmm.
And when you can help them to understand that can be repaired. You can undo what you've done. You can fix it. Even if, you had an argument with a family member who's no longer with us, you can still repair that in your heart and move on. But the fact that you're concerned about that is a good thing. That shows that you have empathy. That shows that you are a good person. And we start working from there. My great grandfather, he said, everybody has a virtue. He said, even the devil was persistent. So everybody had some sort of a virtue, and you have to dig down and find out what those virtues are and start building off them.
So in other words, to what extent do people like sabotage themselves because maybe they have, for whatever reason, they have some desire to be something, to be good at something, say they want to be an actor or a singer or something like that, but they suck. Yeah. So they waste inordinate amounts of time on that when they have these whole other sets of things that they're actually pretty good at. And because they're good at them, when you're good at something and you do it, you practice it, you tend to get better and better and better at it, right? So to what extent does a person need to just completely refocus? It's like, I need to stop trying to do this because I don't do it any good, and there's no indication that I'm going to get better at it, at least enough to be competitive in it.
Well, you're familiar with this from negotiation, from business, that the goal is to look for a win-win solution. It's not about taking a position and saying, I must get this. Mm-hmm. And if you have two people that want the same thing, you'll never get what you want. Okay. So when you want something and the rest of society doesn't want to give it, no one's going to pay you to play music because you're not good at it or good enough at it. And you want them to pay you for doing it. So you want to have a career in music and you can't do it. You have incompatible goals with the rest of the universe, and that's not going to work. The universe will win. Absolutely. And the key in negotiating is finding out what the person really wants and perhaps finding an alternative method to solve that problem.
Right. Well,
what they want is self-validation and a creative outlet. So they might go and get a job at a bank, and they might play music with their friends and family, or go do some music therapy, or with people, or help out as a volunteer. They're good enough for that. They get validation. They get a chance to express themselves creatively. But on the other hand, they still have a job and they can eat.
But maybe, so maybe they can't sing or play an instrument. They could still be around it, enjoy the aura of it by being like a technician, even doing production or promotion, you know, whatever, being a roadie for a rock band. I've known a couple of those guys, you know.
I know someone was saying that, you know, their wife was a model. And when, you know, that's a very short lifespan for models, except for the odd supermodel who makes a name for herself. And when she aged out of that, or when she started having kids, I can't remember which it was, he said, no, she got into the photography part. So she would set up the photography shoots, deal with the girls, recruit them, and set all of that up. So she was still able to be around an environment that she enjoyed. She was able to be in a position that she enjoyed. I've seen this happen with musicians. I've seen this happen with people who are, you know, if you're into dance and you've aged out of that, you know, sometime in your mid-30s, if you're a woman, you stop being competitive in the market, then you can end up in choreography or teaching
studio
or something. Yeah, exactly. Or,
you can't paint art for shit. Start an art gallery, right?
Yeah.
You know,
well, nowadays painting well is not seem to be coupled with.
Yeah, I know that. Oh yeah, bad example, right? No.
Yeah, a friend of mine is a musician. He said that's the thing about music is it's a lot less subjective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're bad at music, if you can't sing, it's live music. It's really hard to cover up. But if you can't paint well, you can fake it. You know, I know people that I've gone to some friends' art schools and seen what the students that are graduating are doing for their final art thesis. And I look at it and I go, this looks like the kind of stuff that, you know, my brother and I would have done when we were kids. Yeah. we would have done something like this. And it is, there are professions where you just can't fake it, you know.
It's amazing.
But the question is why does a person want that? Yeah. You'd be surprised how many people want something in the public eye because they need self-validation. Mm-hmm. I think that there are a lot of people in the Manosphere that are, you know, I was talking with with George Bruno and some others about this, saying, what is the motivation? Is this a money-making motivation? In some cases it is, but for a lot of people, it is a validation of their importance.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, they have a need to be seen as an important leader with something important to say. Mm-hmm. And so whether or not they have something that's actually helping people, they feel the need to say it. And even when the advice starts to pass out of favor or people outgrow it, there's that need to keep people in that circle because they're gaining something from them.
Well, I've seen, you know, many times in this whole, going back to this Manosphere thing where, you know, someone reads a couple books and all of a sudden they're a dating coach or something like that. And I just laugh. You know, you look at their profile on Facebook or Twitter and they've got almost zero following. Now, you know, there's the old saying, fake it till you make it. And there's some validity to that, but I don't think it's, you know, like say you're just starting, say you were a carpenter for years and years, and you just finally started your own construction company business. Well, you know, you got to kind of, you know, be coy about the idea that this is your first contract that you're going to do, right?
Your surgeon walks in and he says to you, okay, so your heart surgery is scheduled for next week. And, oh, by the way, it's going to be my first one ever. I'm really looking forward to it. I've been reading up on what I need to do. Yeah. Pretty sure I know where your heart is.
Right.
And, you know, you would feel very nervous.
And that it's true because, you know, now these guys have performed, they've been assistant in surgeries, maybe hundreds of times, but there always had to be the very first one where they are the lead surgeon, right? So, yeah. You know, that's.
And if you're dealing with a highly professional person like a surgeon, mm-hmm. the best surgery to be on is the first one. Mm. I don't know if you know about the Valley of Death with fighter pilots. So what happens is their incidence of dying during a training mission. Is it Valley of Death? No, it's the other way around. It's Mountain of Death. So there's a peak. So at first missions, very unlikely to die because they're flying really carefully.
Yeah.
Second mission, third mission, same deal. They get into around the 20-something mission and they start taking things for granted.
Yeah.
But they're not good enough to take things for granted yet. They're not good enough to correct their mistakes. And somewhere between there and like the 60th mission is where if they're going to die, they die in there.
Yeah. And if they get past it, they probably just have that kind of raw talent and so on.
Yeah. At that point, even if they screw up, they can correct it in time because it's like an extension of their body at that point. And for a lot of careers, it's like that.
So what I've been talking about, fake it till you make it, is more in the sense of these sorts of things. In other words, you do have the training as a surgeon. You have been a carpenter for years and years and years. And now you're going to be the guy, on and on, these sorts of things. It's quite different from getting into the Manosphere and all of a sudden you're a dating coach or and some of these guys are young too.
Part of the thing is too, if you're, let's say you're 6'4" and you're good looking and you're fit and you got a 6-pack abs and you're going to go to your average guy and say, yeah, I know everything about picking up women. Your average guy's going to go, yeah, in your case, it's just standing near them. And then when they come over to you, you say yes, right? Yeah. If I'm going to learn to fight, I'm not going to learn to fight from a copy of Conan, because I'm like, yeah, what works for you isn't going to work for me down here. I'm not 7 feet tall and wide as a truck. I want to learn to fight from a guy who's roughly my own size. I want to learn from someone who is, has skills that will work in my arena. And a lot of this is part of why I've been successful is that, pickup artistry is designed for a certain type of guy that his goal is to go out and have sex with a lot of women. And the kind of people that are coming to me for help, their goal is to date high quality people, move it into a relationship because they want to have kids and start a dynasty. They're not thinking even about their own children. They're thinking about their grandchildren and great-grandchildren. These are people with a very long-term vision. And those people understand that choosing the wrong woman or the wrong man or whatever, the wrong partner for making children is going to ruin their plans, their vision for the future of what they want to have in life. And you can't apply everything there are things that the pickup artists have right that work in every situation. You can use a lot of those techniques on your wife women like surprises. Women like, they like instability where they know it's not going to be dangerous. And they like this kind of stuff. And you need to understand that, first of all, to keep your wife. And second of all, that you don't bore your woman. You don't want to bore your woman. She's going to be unhappy. And if you bore her and she's unhappy, she'll find ways to punish you. And you want to avoid that entire cycle by being interesting and doing it in a way interesting, not aggravating,
Yep.
The biggest complaint that I have from young women, because I have about almost half my clients are women. The biggest complaint is, I say to them, look, the past guys you were dating, they're sometimes literally crazy or they're way beneath you. Why did you date them? Oh, they were interesting. Mm-hmm. I knew that I couldn't have a long-term relationship with them, but they were interesting. Yeah. Or at least at the moment they were interesting. And I'm concerned with dating a more stable guy that he will be boring. I don't want a guy who doesn't have emotions. Now, they don't mean a guy who cries, but they want a guy who gets angry about stuff that's worth getting angry about and gets excited about stuff and has something in his life, some passion, some love in his life that he enjoys. And that's really, really attractive to women because they complain about, they're worried about the stable men being, it's not that they're stoic, it's that they don't have emotions. So stoicism is control of your emotions. You still have them, but you're in control. They complain men not having emotions, and they'll also complain about men not taking the initiative. Mm-hmm. Women want to be way more submissive than they will tell you in public. Mm-hmm. They'll tell their coach that. They'll let their coach know. They won't tell you in public, because if you have to go up to a man and say, I want you to be submissive to you, take the lead, then you've just taken the lead in the relationship by doing that, and it's impossible for him to ever take the lead now.
You have to you just take it, right?
Exactly.
And you have to be so confident about it that you don't even know. It's like, now there's this, for me it's a classic, like stuff on the home front, like the grocery shopping, the meal schedule, all this stuff, and keeping the home, da 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 da. Correct. That's woman's work.
Yeah, stop asking your wife what she wants and go and do something that's so interesting.
We're going here to.
Yeah,
I always do that. I said we're going to go here for unless she says, "Hey, we're going to go. I want to go here for dinner." Okay, let's go. But if
you want input, I said this to my wife. If you want input, you just let me know.
Yeah, right. But otherwise, I'm just going to.
They don't really want.
I'm going to make the decision, and I'm going to drive the way I drive, and all of this stuff, and it's to me, it's something that you don't. It's not really conscious. It's not really conscious, is what I'm saying. You just do.
Something I started doing about 3 years ago, and it made a big difference. Is I stopped asking my wife, "How are you doing? How are you feeling? Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Because what I said to her was, if you have a problem, come and tell me. We'll deal with it. Don't worry. You can tell me anytime when you need something, you come and tell me. But otherwise, I'm not going to try to guess. I'm going to create an awesome life, and if you like it, great. If not, let me know what the problem is, and we'll work on it. And she loved it. It was annoying for her to be asked, "Are you okay?"
Yeah. Oh yeah. In fact, I've always said the proper answer for a man, the proper answer to the question is, what's wrong, is nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, if
well, you have to understand, if you ask a woman and you say, "What's wrong?" this is a problem for them, because there's two ways for them to perceive this. One of them is that there is something wrong, and you're asking them facetiously, which guys don't normally do, but they assume we do that just like they do. Because when a woman comes along and says everything is fine, that everything's not fine. So they think we're doing that too. They think we're doing that. And then they're like, why is he asking me this? What's going on? And it sets the little hamster wheel off, and they get all stressed out about it. And the other thing is, it seems like it's a criticism. You're obviously doing something that is not right, and therefore I'm asking you, are you fine?
Yeah.
And
I think we've gone on here, and I guess Andy missed the bus this time. It's okay. We'll be on again. This is just a thing to get together and discuss. And I think people might get the sense that or come to the sense that Andy and I do this is for us, because we like to have these discussions, and it's like we could be having it in a room, and we're just letting people listen in. We're not trying to put out any grand message to anyone. We're trying to learn from each other and have people on who we can learn from as well, and put that out there. And as always, you do a great job at this. You put out some really, really good stuff. Any last words?
Yeah, I think what you mentioned there, just getting together and talking, I think all men need to do that more in their own lives. They need to get together with other men, talk about things. A lot of times our problems seem way bigger than they are until we talk about our problems with other people, and we go, "Oh man, he's got it way worse than I do," and or he had it worse than I did and he fixed it. Hey, maybe I can learn something from him.
Yeah.
There's in the Bible is a scripture that says, just as iron sharpens iron, so the face of one man sharpens another. We need to be with other men in order to sharpen ourselves, in order to become the man that we can be. And I think it's important too, if we can, be with men of different ages. You're a little bit older than me. Annie's a little bit younger than me. I have things I can learn from both of you.
Yep.
And it's really important that we get out there with other people. Don't be an atomized cosmopolitan individualist that doesn't talk to other people because he doesn't need anyone. Be part of a group.
And then the other thing I just add to that is that is that this internet tool gives us the ability to easily do that, not only with men of different ages, but different backgrounds, different cultures, even English as second languages. You know, we're going to have a Japanese guy. Andy and I are on the 18th, a Japanese philosopher, right? So there's all these different things that you can interact with.
Is it the one Andy was posting or you were posting about before?
Yeah, I'm not going to drop the name right. I'm not going to drop the name right now, but
I don't know who it is, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be great. All right, Noah. Thanks for and I'll put it in the notes, but it is SMV the number 4K letter A.com. That's his website. All right.